My name is Arthur Olener, IATSC Local Number 1.
Peter Bodio at PAM.
My name is Jim Gatens. I'm with Local 751, Treasurers and Ticket Sellers Local.
Sissy Kaspari, Local 751.
My name is Michael Martinez. I'm IATSE Local 1.
Bob Kurzman, I'm a member of Local 1.
My name is Robert Tersey. I'm with Local 1.
Susan H. Schulman, and I am affiliated with SDC.
I'm Greg Themius, and I'm from Local 802.
Bruce and Sarah Barish, Ernest Windsor Cleaners. We've been cleaning Broadway since 1908.
Steve Vinovich, my union is the Equity, SAG-AFTRA. I am an actor.
My first Broadway show was Sleuth. I got the job. I was interviewed by a press agent named Ruth Cage. Ruth Cage said, "Who is Joshua Ellis?" I said, "I'm a 23-year-old artificial insemination donor who would like to be a Broadway press agent." And Ruth said, "You're hired."
Okay, the first time I ever played on Broadway was Miss Saigon.
I made my Broadway debut with the first revival of Sweeney Todd at Circle in the Square.
The first Broadway show would have been Gemini, and I got the job through friends that I worked with at Brooks Van Horn.
Bubbly Brown Sugar at the Active Theater, which is now the August Wilson.
My first show was Present Laughter with George C. Scott.
The Heidi Chronicles with Joan Allen and Peter Friedman. Among many other wonderful actors, Cynthia Nixon, Sarah Jessica Parker.
I was a little boy in 1965, and I joined the Broadway, then became the touring company first stop of Oliver, with Davy Jones as the Artful Dodger.
Well, it was prior to being a treasurer or a box office person. It was a candy butcher at Mary Mary, and it's Helen Hayes Theater.
It's Phantom of the Opera, and I got the job because I was working at the costume shop Corelli's that built the costumes.
I worked with Hudson Scenic, building for Broadway, Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis.
The first Broadway show I worked on was Sally Marr with Joan Rivers at the Helen Hayes Theater.
The first major Broadway show I worked on was probably Annie.
Well, the first one actually was as an apprentice press agent on the original production of Wonderful Town. I was referred to the press office by the then assistant stage manager of Wonderful Town, whose name was Harold Prince.
For someone to start out, perseverance is a good thing.
Do every job you can.
Work wherever you can.
Do everything.
To be honest, the smaller the theater, the more work you're going to learn to do fast.
90% of anything is showing up. So you have to show up on time.
Show up on time.
Which means early.
Don't wait around for someone to do something for you. Go out and do it for yourself.
You learn from whoever is willing to teach you.
Be prepared not to be in a 9-to-5 industry.
Practice. Be patient and wait your turn and be nice to everybody.
Be nice to everybody.
Be the person you want to sit next to.
Quit. Leave the business as quickly as you can and with as little fuss as possible.
One day, I saw a marriage disintegrate before my very eyes.
I once was working in a house where a woman came running up to me and said, "Am I seeing a preview?" And I said, "Yes, you are." And she said, "I cannot see previews. I have to know what to think."
Teresa Wright, who was in Mornings at 7 when I was the manager, used to take me to lunch at Sardi's on Wednesdays between shows on the half price because she was convinced that I was starving to death.
When I was in Oliver as a little boy, I remember the dog occasionally, the little pit bull, he would come up to the bridge and sometimes he'd figure it wasn't his night and he'd go back off again. And then one night he would have to come all the way down the stairs and go into Fagin's den. And he got a little nervous, saw somebody in the audience he knew or something, and he just did his business right there right on the corner of the turntable, and then the music cue is, and all the boys in Fagin's den have to run out, and it was like lemmings, slipped and fell and fell and fell and fell.
So that night, in order to run the show, the fire department had 5 or 6 fire engines surrounding the theater in order to do a performance. So we're doing the performance, about to do the performance, it's half hour, and I'm walking around backstage. I was the deck electrician, and I smelled smoke. There's firemen everywhere. So I turned to a fireman who was hanging out by the pin rail and I said, "Gee, you know, I'm just a stagehand, but I smell smoke." Somebody opened the back loading door and the hotel right behind the Palace Theater was fully engulfed in flames. Tommy Toon, and it was in my one and only, he came down from the fly floor on strapped
And I was one of the girls, me, little me, had to unhook him. But then one night it didn't unhook. So I had to run, get out of the dance scene and try to unclip it. Finally it happened, but it was a sweaty moment.
I did a quick change with Keith Carradine, and I was in the back, and I got to pull up his pants and stick my hand in his pants. You can cut that if you want.
Early in my career, I met Wendy Wasserstein, the playwright. She called me and asked me to feed her cat. I stopped dealing with Wendy and began receiving phone calls directly from Ginger. Wow! Hi, Ben, this is Ginger Wasserstein. Wendy's going out of town and she wants you to come feed me. So I would. And this went on actually for a number of years. Of all the stuff I did early in my career, it was by far the most fun and actually also the most lucrative.
I'm not terribly superstitious, but I work with a lot of people who are.
I believe in all the Broadway superstitions.
Putting shoes on the shelf above your head is a pretty good one.
Be fully capitalized before your first rehearsal.
Maybe it's pretty practical not to wear new shoes for the opening night.
Don't tell me good luck.
Shoes, it's all shoes.
I believe that we have ghosts at the Palace Theater.
I do believe that the Belasco Theater is haunted.
I have two theater superstitions. The first one I got from Yul Brynner when I worked on The King and I. Whistling backstage is taboo.
I try to avoid whistling in the theater whenever possible.
No whistling.
You don't whistle backstage.
Don't whistle in the dressing room.
The other superstition, I have no idea where I got it, but I refuse to name the play that everyone calls in the theater the Scottish play.
The only one is the Scottish play.
No Scottish play.
Well, we don't say the name of the Scottish play, even in the box office, if we can avoid it.
I do that thing with the Scottish play. If somebody says that, I want them to go out and turn around and spit over the shoulder, knock on the door and come in again.
I never worked on a production of the Scottish play, so I've never been in a position to use it other than to write it in an actor's bio in a playbill.
I believe it all just in case any of it's true.
The title of my autobiography, would I ever be stupid enough to write it, would be Nobody Knows Anything.
The autobiography, which is never going to be written, would be called My Lips Are Sealed.
If you love it, keep plugging.
Bored to do this. You're never going to believe this.
If I were going to write that book, it would be Linda Powell on Broadway. Sporadic, but fabulous.
Undresser to the stars.
Do you have anything closer? This is what it's going to cost, and now it's time to close.
My autobiography would be The Luckiest Kid in New York.
This is my day job! Exclamation mark.